fortunate enough to draw a deer tag here in my own state again this year, and it happened to be over in Ely, Nevada. Trevor's part of the woods, so I gave him a call on the phone and said, hey, I drew a deer tag. Oh, and by the way, I was fortunate enough to draw an elk tag, so I get to hunt with you twice this year. So it was pretty exciting for me to be able to come back and hunt with my friend. That's the most exciting part about it for me. You know, whether we were to kill anything or not would just be the fact that I got to come be in the mountains and do some deer hunting and some elk hunting. So it's just really good to be back.
I work for our family business, Bull Ridge Guide Service, here in Ely, Nevada. Been in business since '96. My dad and his brother started the company then. Just always been outdoors, hunted, fished, trapped, pretty much all their lives, and just translated into guiding.
I first met Chuck and Trevor back in 2011. My wife Julie had a elk tag over here in Ely, Nevada. We hired Bull Ridge, which is Chuck and Trevor and Chuck's brothers. And my wife ended up killing a giant bull, and we just kind of built a friendship from there. I mean, these guys are the most likable people that I've ever met and hunted with. Trevor's probably one of the best hunters that I've ever been around, and he's a super good friend. His dad, Chuck, as well.
I've always done it my whole life with my dad and my uncles. Kind of second nature. Just what I've grew up doing, and just love being out there, Finding the animals, watching them year after year, picking up their sheds. It never ends, and it's always a new day. It's not like your typical job where it's the same stuff every day. You never know what's gonna happen from day to day.
And that friendship just kind of evolved from there. I just can't say enough about Chuck and Trevor and the whole Marks family and the people that work for them. They're great hunters, they're great people, ethical, great morals, great values.
What drives me with hunting is just basically being out with my family. It's pretty much my dad and my uncles, and our cousins that are out there all the time, taking people. It's great and everything, but just the interaction we share with the hunters and, the people along the way is what I enjoy. It drives me, obviously, to find big animals. That's always great, but if you have a really good guy there with you, it just makes it 10 times better. Memories that's gonna last forever.
The first day of the hunt, we saw some deer, lots of does, a couple small bucks. Nothing got our motor running per se, but it was still a good day. We were out in the mountains and we were hunting. The second morning, Chuck found a couple bucks crossing a ridge into a flat, and they were just kind of moving and feeding, and the one buck looked, pretty good. And
spotted a nice 4-point, probably high 170s, low 180 class buck. Super wide, looks pretty heavy, so trying to relocate him here and maybe make a play on him this morning.
Second morning, Chuck found a couple bucks crossing a ridge into a flat, and they were just kind of moving and feeding, and the one buck looked pretty good. And after further debate, we looked at it a little closer and decided to make a move on it. We got into position where we thought, the bucks might come through, but we got picked up by a group of does that kind of scared the bucks, and they moved a little farther away than we thought they were going to be. And when we first saw them, they were around 550, 600 yards, and then they moved out a little farther.
You know which one's him?
Yeah.
Like in the middle?
Yeah.
It's probably about 780 something.
And they were on a ridge with a tree, a bunch of mahogany trees behind them. In the position we were in, we couldn't see how the ridge kind of rolled over into the trees, and it looked like the trees were right at the top of the ridge. When we threw up the rangefinders and ranged them, they were actually closer than what we thought they were because of us being a little lower than they were and the kind of the apex of the ridge that they were on. So we took a shot we thought was a good shot, and we ended up shooting over the buck that we were trying to go after. Second morning into my 2017 Nevada deer hunt. I feel like I made a rookie mistake this morning. Found a good buck. He was with a group of 4 other bucks. Ranged a deer. He ranged him with his binoculars. I ranged him with the Vortex, and we were both within 3 yards of each other. I had a perfect broadside shot. With my equipment, I practice all the time, so the shot wasn't the problem. The problem was we couldn't get a true range because it would bounce back and forth between where they actually were and where it looked like they were. After looking at the film and then looking at the spotting scope, through the spotting scopes where the deer actually were, the tree line was about 100 to 150 yards farther away than we thought it was. And we misjudged it, and it was, when we got to the position where we could take a shot, everything looks different, which it always does. It doesn't matter how long you've been hunting, everybody makes mistakes. Was I upset that I misjudged it and that I missed the deer? Sure, I was. I think if you're a hunter and you've been doing this long enough, everybody gets upset if they miss. It's part of the game. That's why they call it hunting and not killing. These are free-range animals on public land that anybody that's got a tag in their pocket, if they can find them, they get the opportunity as well as I do. We moved on and hunted the rest of the day. A little tough as far as weather goes. By 10 o'clock, it's 75 degrees.
The only thing unique about Ely is you never know what the weather's going to be like. The last couple days it's been like 70, and the other days they were like 40s for highs.
Deer go in the trees early. They come out late in the afternoon, so your window of opportunity is very small. If you do see a good buck that you want to pursue or go after, hopefully you can find him early and put him to bed and, maybe make a good stalk on him. So going into the third morning, Trevor went to a spot to glass and look for a buck. I went with Chuck, and Chuck says, "Hey, why don't you drive down the valley, look at this one spot he told me to go to, and Trevor and I'll be behind you, and then we'll go farther down the valley and look at some other spots." So set up the Vortex spotting scope and looking around, and saw 4 bucks under a big juniper tree out in the middle of this little flat right before it headed up the mountain. The one buck looked pretty good. It was hard to tell. I had the sun in my face and he had the sun at his back, but it looked like a really mature buck to me, and I thought, man, this buck's worth taking another look at. So I saw Chuck coming down the road, so I waved him over and showed him where I was looking. He got the bucks in his scope, and we were talking back and forth about, he's a pretty good buck, and well, I don't know how big he is, but he looks pretty big, and we were just kind of discussing it. And I didn't want to get overexcited because Chuck's been doing this for a lot longer than I have, and he's been behind the camera in pictures of some really, really big animals in his lifetime that he's helped harvest for his clients over the years. So, I trust his judgment more so than I trust my own, but I had this feeling like, hey, this is a pretty good buck. And about that time, Trevor pulled up.
With this 22 mid hunt and the deer kind of in a transition right now, moving as to where this place we were located at, it's kind of new every day because deer are moving throughout the day. So the next day, you might not see that deer you've seen the day before. So with that being said, we just set up down there, and Mike had spotted a pretty good buck and said, I think it's one you need to look at. So we took a look at him and said, yeah, we could see he had that big, hook cheater on him, and he had a solid frame, and it looked good enough for Mike, and we thought it's definitely a trophy animal, and we're gonna try to get him. We went after him to take a look, with intention of harvesting him.
Trevor was looking at the buck, and Chuck says, I think he's got a cheater or extra on the left side. And he wasn't real excited about it. He just said, I think he's got a cheater or an extra. He's just kind of talking like Chuck always does. And Trevor saw the cheater, and he's like, okay, Mike, that's a good buck. We got to go.
I'm trying to sneak on this buck. What we found looks pretty good, so I'm trying to get into position for a shot, hopefully.
When I saw Trevor get excited, I knew that I wasn't, for lack of a better word, trying to make this buck maybe something that he wasn't. I knew, I love hunting mule deer. I've hunted mule deer my whole life, and I knew it was a big buck. But to see Trevor get excited about it, I knew, hey, this is a really good buck. We knew the general direction that these bucks were headed. They were just kind of feeding, a little bit uphill and across the valley, and we knew if we could get in front of them that we had a good shot of maybe intercepting where they were going.
So when we went up there and he was cutting across, and we just got ahead of him a little bit, and then he ended up coming perfect. And
he stopped right there. He stopped it. Okay.
If any of you watching this ever draw a tag anywhere in Nevada and you're looking for the best guides in the state, give Trevor and his dad a call over at Bull Ridge, and you won't regret it. You'll have the hunt of a lifetime, and you'll see some great animals as well.
Yeah, he stopped right there.
I got him.
He stopped it. Okay.
And we had the wind in our face. We had that in our favor. And then there were a couple open spots with just some cheatgrass in it. And we kept looking and looking, thinking, man, they got to come out here. That's the way they were headed. Maybe we should just sit where we're at. Maybe they decided to go down the valley. Maybe they're going to come out below us, maybe right at us, maybe above us. We weren't actually sure where they were going to come out. When we got into that window of, hey, I think we're about 500-600 yards from where we should be able to see them. And then, here comes the first buck, and Trevor sees him first, and he's like, here they come, here they come. And he's excited, now I'm excited. And we got all into position, and the first buck came out, and then Trevor said, hey, he's the second buck from the back. And there were 4 bucks, here comes the second buck. and then he held up in the tall sagebrush. And couldn't see him. And Trevor said, move the gun over to the right. There's an opening where the first buck went through. He's gonna follow that first buck. They're gonna come right through there. And sure enough, you know, seemed like an eternity, but it was maybe only, you know, less than a minute. And here he'd come, and he walked into that opening, and he had a little buck behind him kind of pushing him, and he stopped in that opening. And,
That one stopped right there. He stopped. Okay. Got him. Reload. I think that might have done it, but he's going. He's doing the wobble back. That one got him right there.
Did it?
Yeah.
As they say, the rest is history. We let him have it at 375 yards, and, you know, as they say, big buck down. We just shot a giant Nevada mule deer with a big old cheater.
Look at this. The closer we get, the better he looks.
Oh wow!
Big old cheater, big beams.
Big beams,
Hell
huh?
yeah, stud.
Well, the camera guy gave me 5 while he's running the gimbal. Put a big Nevada mule deer on the ground. Super excited. Trying to follow my buddy Trevor, so I'm out of breath. And now we're gonna go check him out. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Thank you. The whole experience of being in the outdoors, I think, and that's what it's all about. 2017 Nevada rifled mule deer. I'd like to thank my good friends Chuck Marks and Trevor Marks for getting us on this buck today. We made it happen. It's been kind of a crazy trip. We shot a different buck yesterday. Chuck and I both misread the range. Then we went to the range just to check the rifle, and come to find out the screws that hold the Picatinny rail in right on top of the action were sheared off. So Chuck lent me his 28 Nosler and let that thing do a little barking this morning. And I'd just like to thank everybody that allows me to be out here and do what I love to do. From my wife Julie, my son Joey, friends that I have like Chuck and Trevor, all my sponsors. Can't say enough. Just thank you to everybody. This is truly an amazing animal. You know, thank you to this animal. It'll feed my family, and you know, it's a great day. Great day in Nevada. It's good to be home.